Oh no, I came on right when I said I was coming on. So there's no one here because nobody believes me. I got zero credibility with time, right? At this point. So I'll just get started with my stuff. I've got a ton of material that I want to speak on today, and I'm hungry, so I don't know how long I can go. I didn't want to eat in front of you guys again, but I will drink my coffee and say thank you for being here, whether you're live or on the replay crew. Please hit your thumb, your like button, if you don't mind. I like to pick it up and show it off because I just think it's so cool. I like to tell the little story about how when I saw that in the store, I was like, ew, why would anybody buy that? And then I was like, oh, I wonder if they still have it. I had to go back the next day because first day I was like, that's really weird. Anyway, what else? Make sure you're still subscribed in the event that you are subscribed. And if you're not, please consider doing so. It helps a content creator a great deal. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like my channel. Turn on your notification bell to ring. And everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start the conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. So, where to begin? Let's start with Sarah Ransome and the Farmer Girls, Annie and Maria. That's what I put in the title. It's really hot today. The dogs are outside, so if they ask to come in, I'm going to have to get up and let them in because they're out in the backyard. I put some fresh cold water out there with them. And I've got nice, fresh, cold coffee. So I'm going to start out by reading some stuff to you. Like I said, because I have so much material that I want to cover. But since nobody's here, maybe I should just start the whole thing over. What to do. So let's see. This is...
My sister fixed her.
Oh, I hate... Still haven't gotten the YouTube Premium where you don't have to deal with the ads. I think it's like $35 a month now, which would really suck. Like that adds up. We got enough bills, right? Don't we all? So there's the complaint that I mentioned yesterday about how many of these people that I feel like should have Wikipedia pages don't. So Maria Farmer has a Wikipedia page. Sarah Ransome does not. And Maria's little sister, Annie, does not. Which is really odd because Annie actually testified in... I think it was Ghislaine's trial, but Maria couldn't because she was in the middle of a cancer treatment. She was like in the ICU, actually. So she's had cancer twice, which she attributes directly to not only the abuse, but the last 30 years of trying to stand up for herself and seek justice and getting nowhere. And then having the most disgusting world leader, and you guys have seen the entire South Park episode, I hope, by now. I really hope you have because it's good. Anyway, let me start by reading the Wikipedia of Jeffrey Epstein as a foundation. One of the reasons I want to read it is because all of this bullcrap mess of where we're at in our economy right now with this bullcrap president and the whole kit and caboodle goes back to the 2008 economic crisis, the recession. Like that was the worst one in my lifetime. There's been a few. Anyway, I'm going to get started with Wikipedia. Jeffrey Epstein, January 20th, 1953, August 10th, 2019, was an American financier and child sex offender. Born and raised in New York City, Epstein began his professional career as a teacher at the Dalton School, despite lacking a college degree. After his dismissal from the school in 1976, he entered the banking and finance sector, working at Bear Stearns in various roles before starting his own firm. Thank you, Leslie. Epstein cultivated an elite social circle. I'm just going to start saying little e. And procured many women and children with whom he and his associates ritually abused. In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida began investigating Little E after a parent reported that he had ritually abused her 14-year-old daughter. Federal officials identified 36 girls, some as young as 14 years old, who that was kind of his target age. I was going to say rug of choice. Like that was, I think he wanted them to have not had any sexual experience. And let me say this too, that he really thrived on instilling fear in people, which is a huge element of a narcissist and power and control. It's not so much the gratification, it's the power and control. Okay, so some as young as 14 years old, whom Little E had allegedly ritually abused. Little E pleaded guilty and was convicted in 2008. So yeah, it didn't resolve until 2008. That was 3 years which is pretty typical, by a Florida state court of procuring a child for prostitution. Okay. It's called statutory, you freaks, and of soliciting a prostitute. It's called statutory. They missed that. He was convicted of only these 2 crimes, but I'm going to get through this because it says more about it. As part of a controversial plea deal, and served almost 13 whole months in custody, but with extensive work release. So yeah, more specifically, the jail that they held him at was like a county jail that was just like completely posh, and he had his own wing. He got his own chauffeur, all that. Let's see. Little E was arrested again on July 6, 2019 on federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. He passed away in his jail cell on August 10th, 2019. The medical examiner ruled that his death was a self-unaliving by hanging. Little E's lawyers have disputed the ruling, and there has been significant public skepticism about the true cause of his passing. Like, come on, can we just like get past the whole conspiracy theory and arguing about it? Like, it's just so freaking obvious. In my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. But yeah, like, quit wasting time on that. Let's just move on to we got even bigger fish to fry, in my opinion, resulting in numerous conspiracy theories. In 2025, the released CCTV footage supporting the conclusion that Little E passed by self-unaliving in his jail cell. However, when the DOJ released the footage, approximately 2 minutes and 53 seconds of it was missing. And the video was found to have been modified despite the FBI's claim that it was raw. It's kind of like funny, not funny. Since Little E's death precluded the possibility of pursuing criminal charges against him, a judge dismissed all criminal charges on August 29th, 2019. How convenient. Little E had a decades-long association with the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, who recruited young girls for him, leading to her 2021 conviction on U.S. federal charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy for helping him procure girls, including a 14-year-old, for child sexual abuse and prostitution. His friendship with public figures, including Prince Andrew, Donald Trump, Mette Merritt, who's the crown princess of Norway, has attracted significant controversy. And let me see what else. I don't want to read you the entire thing. So he was the older of two siblings. He and his brother Mark, who we've heard about in the news a lot lately, if you've watched any of the interviews with him, grew up in the working class neighborhood of Seagate, a private gated community in Coney Island, Brooklyn. So who was his other sibling? Was it the sister? I think it's the sister. And I think I actually have a name written down in here. Let's see. The sister might be named Jamie Jordan. Maybe. I'm trying to figure this out. So we've got his brother Mark, and then maybe we have a brother named Steve. But I'm not sure. If anybody knows, please email me or put a comment in the chat or after the video. If you feel like it, that would be much appreciated. Let's see. Little E was referred to as Bear by his parents, while Mark was known as Puggy. Neighbors described the Little E family as being so gentle, the most gentle people. Little E attended local public schools, first attending Public School 188, then Mark Twain Junior High School nearby, and usually earned money by tutoring classmates. Acquaintances considered Little E sweet and generous, although quiet and nerdy, and nicknamed him Epi. He was just an average boy, very smart in math, slightly overweight, freckles, always smiling, a female friend later said. In 1967, Little E attended National Music Camp at the Interlochen Center for the Arts. He began playing the piano when he was 5 and was regarded a talented musician by friends. I'm getting images of the talented Mr. Ripley. Oh, hey, K-Mac, what's up? Sickos, how are you? Thanks for coming in and saying hi. Yeah, and we all know, oh, there we go. Sorry, I accidentally went to your page, K-Mac. I was trying to highlight your thing. Come on. It's just going all over the place. There we go. Pinned the message. Got it. Nailed it. Pinned it. Okay. How are you today? So I think today, if he's not already there, Dear Leader was going to Scotland for, I think, 5 days. He's fleeing the country. Funny, not funny. Interesting, right? Good timing. Good timing to get the H out of Dodge. Sherry, hello. How are you? So I'm reading the Wikipedia about Little E. It's interesting, and it just is mind-boggling. So he graduated in 1969 from Lafayette High School at age 16. So little Doogie Howser, having skipped 2 grades. Later that year, he attended advanced math classes at Cooper Union until he changed colleges in 71. From September 71, he attended Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences at New York University, studying mathematical physiology, but left without receiving a degree in June 74. So, Anna Bees, what's up, girlfriend? At age 21, Little E started working in September of 74 as a physics and math teacher for teens at the Dalton School on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Donald Barr, who served as the headmaster until June of 1974, was known to have made several unconventional recruitments at the time, although it is unclear whether he had a direct role in hiring Epstein. Sure. There was like a whole 3 months between, allegedly. Did I say Little E? I did not. I said the whole thing. That's okay. I'm just trying to keep it on the DL on the down low. 3 months after Barr's departure, Little E began to teach at the school despite his lack of credentials. Little E allegedly showed inappropriate behavior toward underage female students at the time, paying them constant attention and even showing up at a party where young people were drinking, according to a former student. Other former students often saw him flirting with female students. Eventually, little E became acquainted with Alan Greenberg, the chief executive officer of Bear Stearns, whose son and daughter were attending the school. Greenberg's daughter, Lynn Coppell, pointed to a parent-teacher conference where little E influenced another Dalton parent into advocating for him to Greenberg. In June 1976, after little E was dismissed from Dalton for poor performance, Greenberg offered him a job at Bear Stearns. He might have gotten dismissed for bagging a student for all we know. I mean, they're not going to put that out there. They're going to whitewash it, right? Fred Field, hello, no notification. Well, and I posted the live late last night, and I didn't change the time, not a single once. Are you so proud of me, Fred? Thanks so much for being here, you guys. We got a half a dozen of us in house. You guys didn't get them. I am, from listening to other content creators, I don't even think I'm supposed to say out loud SHOWD. Wait, I can't spell SHODOW. Is that right? No, I can't spell. I'm serious. SHADOW. That word, like what Peter Pan didn't have. And the BANNED, like even saying that on your channel. And so let's not say it in the chat. We can just say SB if we need to refer to it. That is another thing that flags. Like, okay, Big Brother is totally watching us. We already knew that. Okay, little E joined Bear Stearns in 76 as a low-level junior assistant to a floor trader. He swiftly moved up to become an options trader working in the special products division, and then advised the bank's wealthiest clients, such as Seagram president Edgar Bronfman, on tax mitigation strategies. Jimmy Kane, C-A-Y-N-E, the bank's later chief executive officer, praised little E's skills with wealthy clients and complex products. And well, I'm glad that the subject makes you dive right in, because yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I have a lot of material I want to cover with you guys. It's nice to kind of have a path, because it just seems like so chaotic with TMI, and I do better when I have focus. Hello, that's why I like doing this. Focus, even though sometimes I can't. Can't focus. Let's see. In 1984, years after joining Bear Stearns, little E became a limited partner. In 81, little E was asked to leave Bear Stearns for, according to his sworn testimony, being guilty of a Reg D violation, which I don't know what that is, and I'm going to bet it has something to do with what's in his pants. I don't know. That's just a wild guess. Oh, yeah, D, the big D, right? Now, I think that's not what they're going to phrase it as. Even if that was what caused it, they're going to come up with something else. Even though little E departed abruptly, he remained close to Kane and Greenberg and was a client of Bear Stearns until its collapse in 2008. So for anybody who came in after I was talking about 2008, this is why I'm going over this. I'm 57 years old. I'll be 58 next month. The collapse of our economy in 2008, or 08, as we like to say, us old folks, was the biggest, way beyond economic recession. Like, we had a recession in the 80s. We've had a couple of others. We had like the .com recession, the E-recession. I can't even remember. We've had a handful in my lifetime. But 08 was a collapse, and it all came down to Bear Stearns. And isn't this interesting now that we're learning that it was so much more than just not being able to keep his D in his pants, that he had all of this stuff with a country that I'll just say starts with an I. You know what country I'm talking about. And then all of the money L, the cleaning, you know. I hate having to speak in code. It makes you sound insane, right? It's okay. My committee told me I'm not crazy, so it's okay. um, Here we go. And oh yeah, then he got to be I'll just start reading again. August 81, Little E founded his own consulting firm, Intercontinental Assets Group, IAG, which assisted clients in recovering stolen money from fraudulent brokers and lawyers. What an interesting thing for him to be involved in. What an interesting thing for one of Donnie's friends to be involved in. We should have never bailed out all those rich people. I know. It's insane. The rich get richer. You're not crazy, Jazz. Well, thank you, dear. Unless you are too, right? I'm just thinking of a Kids in the Hall skit with the two that escaped from the insane asylum, and they're robbing banks and they got crazy wigs on and they're like, we're not crazy. They're in their bathrobes with their guns and their crazy wigs. We're not crazy. And then they're like, okay, everybody down on the ground, take off your shoes, circulate your shoes. They forget to like steal money. I think they're just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Trade shoes. Okay, back to this. Sorry, it's good to laugh. I mean, dang. Yeah, see, we tried to sell our house in '08 in Seattle so that we can move back to Ohio. And Seattle was kind of immune to the crisis in some respects, the city of Seattle, not us. My husband had a state job. He was affected. And I had a private practice. I was affected. But we thought, well, we can do what we've been trying to do forever, which was move back to Ohio to raise our kids here. And we took our house off the market because we couldn't sell it. And then we sold it a year later, thinking, well, we'll just wait a year and then we'll get our asking price rather than lowering our price. But no, that didn't work either. We had to lower it tremendously. And it took a long time. We actually moved before it sold. We were like, it was harsh. It was extremely expensive. Yes, if you're crazy, I'm crazy. Well, I always say, you know, there's two kinds of crazy. There's the good crazy, and then there's the other crazy. Which kind are you? Okay, back to the Wikipedia. This is interesting. This is super interesting. Sorry for the digression there. So, recovering stolen money from fraudulent brokers and lawyers. What about fraudulent politicians, huh? Little E described his work at the time as being a high-level bounty hunter. He told his friends that he worked sometimes as a consultant for governments and the very wealthy to recover embezzled funds, while at other times he worked for clients who had embezzled funds. Isn't that great? It's quite the education one is going to receive doing that type of work. Spanish actress and heiress Ana Obregon was one such wealthy client whom Epstein helped in '82 recover her father's millions lost in investments, which had disappeared when Drysdale government securities collapsed because of fraud. Little E also stated to some people at the time that he was an intelligence agent. During the 80s, Little E possessed an Australian passport that had his photo but with a false name. The passport showed his place of residence in Saudi Arabia. Is this not fascinating, you guys? In 2017, a former senior White House official reported that Alexander Acosta, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, who had handled Little E's criminal case in '08, had stated to interviewers of President DT first transition team, this is in quotes, I was told Little E belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, and that Little E was above his pay grade, meaning little E was above Alex Acosta's pay grade. This is important. During this period, one of little E's clients was the Saudi Arabian businessman. Are you ready? I can't say the first name. I can say the last name. It's Adnan. Adnan Khashoggi. Khashoggi. We've been talking about Khashoggi lately, huh? The uncle of Dadi Al Fayed, who was the middleman. And remember too, isn't that the father of the guy who was dating Princess Diana? I think Dodi Al Fayed. He owned like the department stores. And anyway, I'm going to keep reading. Who was the middleman in transferring? But again, these people, they all go back so far. It's crazy. When you think about Princess Andrew, when you think about our dear leader, I'm going to just keep going. Who was the middleman in transferring American weapons from the country that starts with an I to that ends with an L to another country that starts with an I and ends with an N? That's only 4 letters. As part of the Iran-Contra affair in the 80s, Khashoggi was one of several defense contractors that he knew. In the mid-80s, little E traveled multiple times between the States, Europe, and the Middle East. While in London, little E met Stephen Hoffenberg. They had been introduced through Douglas Lease, a defense contractor, and John Mitchell, the former U.S. Attorney General. Well, then we are all crazy, LOL. Birds of a feather, or I like to say freaks of a feather, flock together. Towers Financial Corporation. Stephen Hoffenberg hired little E in 87 as a consultant for Towers Financial Corporation, unaffiliated with the company of the same name, founded in 98 and acquired by Old National Bank Corp in 2014, a collection agency that brought debts people owed to hospitals, banks, and phone companies. Hoffenberg set Epstein little E up in offices in the Villard houses in Manhattan and paid him $25,000 per month for his consulting work, equivalent to about $70,000 now a month. Hoffenberg and little E then refashioned themselves as corporate raiders. Sorry, my nose is itching and I have a nice fancy hanky. So 1 second. Scratch that nose. Sorry about that. Okay, let's keep going. Where was I? They refashioned themselves as corporate raiders using Towers Financial as their raiding vessel. I'm going to scratch my nose one more time. I'm warning you, don't be disgusted. I'm sure you guys wouldn't be, but I would be. I would only be because it's me. If I was watching you guys do it, I'd probably be fine. But it's just one of my crazy little things. Continuing, one of E's first assignments for Hoffenberg was to implement what turned out to be an unsuccessful bid to take over Pan America World Airways in 87. Again, with the freaking airplanes, things falling out of the sky. A similar unsuccessful bid in 88 was made to take over Emory Air Freight Corp. During this period, Hoffenberg and little E worked closely together and traveled everywhere on Hoffenberg's private jets. Oh my God, what the F is wrong with my nose? It's just like going crazy with the itching. I'm so sorry. It's ridiculous. Give me a break. It's like it's out to get me. You know, like the rest of the world. Where was I? Oh, and Princess Di was dating Dodi. Oh, okay. Thank you. I was thinking, so let me go back to that real quick. And I'm just looking to see where my leaving off point is. Where was that thing about Dodi? It was not too far back, was it? If I can't find it. Yeah, Dodi Al-Fayed. Okay, the uncle. Okay, so because Adnan Khashoggi was the uncle of Dodi Al-Fayed, who was the middleman in transferring American weapons from the country that starts with an I and ends with an L to the country that starts with an I and ends with an N, that's 4 letters, as part of the Iran-Contra affair in the 80s. So this, again, OMG, this is getting into all the stuff with Oliver North. He took the fall for everyone. I've been talking about him off camera lately because all of this stuff was reminding me of him, but I didn't realize that. So I'm really happy to have that information. Okay, so I know right where I left off. And I'm going to read my last sentence again. During this period, Hoffenberg and Little E worked closely together and traveled everywhere on Hoffenberg's private jet. In 93, Towers Financial Corporation imploded when it was exposed as one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in our country's history, losing over $450 million of its investors' money. So think about how Donnie Two Dolls plays into all this with his dear bestie Little E, right? Rat bastards. Yeah, thank you for that, Sherry. That's awesome. Did I highlight it? I did not. Thank you for the clarification. That's awesome. See, that's why I have you here. Thank you. Thank you. That's why I like to have you here, and I appreciate your cooperation with being here. There's a million things you could be doing right now. Let's see, what else? Okay, the equivalent to $1 billion now. What? That's no big deal, $1 billion. What about the trillions? Kidding. In court documents, Hoffenberg claimed that Little E was intimately involved in the scheme. Little E left the company by 89 and was never charged for involvement in the massive investor fraud committed. It is unknown if Little E acquired any stolen funds from the Towers Ponzi scheme. So I wonder about Leslie too, because he started his first business of the L brands in the 80s. The Limited. Financial management firm. I watched the Oliver North trial. Yes, he took the fall. Yeah, I called it the Oliver twist, and I was in high school, and I really impressed my retired colonel from the Army, my grandfather. I really impressed him by calling it that because he thought that was so cute and funny. And then he realized I was paying attention because he thought that I was just a kid that didn't care about world issues, which I kind of didn't, but you know, that one I couldn't miss. Anyway, in 88, while Little E was still consulting for Hoffenberg, he founded his financial management firm, J. Little E and Company. This is 88. The company was said by Little E to have been formed to manage the assets of clients with more than $1 billion in net worth. And this is back when that would be more like $2 billion of net worth. Although others have expressed skepticism that he was restrictive of the clients he took. The only publicly known billionaire client of Epstein was Leslie Wex, chairman and CEO of L Brands, formerly The Limited, Incorporated, and Victoria's Secret. In 86, Little E met Wex through their mutual acquaintances, insurance executive Robert Meister and his wife in Palm Beach. A year later, Little E became Wex's financial advisor and served as his right-hand man. I wonder what he did with that right hand. Yes, correct again, Sherry, you're on fire. Yes, isn't she? So, here we are. Within the year, Little E had sorted out Wex's entangled finances. In July of 91, Wex granted Little E full power of attorney over his affairs. That's crazy for anyone to do. Because, yeah, then They shared money. I wonder what else they shared. The power of attorney allowed Little E to hire people, sign checks, buy and sell properties, borrow money, and do anything else of a legally binding nature on Wexner's behalf. I didn't say that full name. So this guy, with his L brands, might have been laundering big money for other countries, allegedly, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion. Little E managed Wex's wealth in various projects, such as building his yacht, the Limitless. In 95, Little E was director of the Wex Foundation and Wex Heritage Foundation. He was also president of Wex's Property, which developed part of the town of New Albany outside of Columbus, Ohio, where Wex lived. Little E made millions in fees by managing Wex's financial affairs. Although never employed by L Brands, he frequently corresponded with the company executives. Little E often attended Victoria's Secret fashion shows and hosted models at his New York City home, as well as helping aspiring models get work with the company. Let's put helping in quotes. Gross. In 96, Little E changed the name of his firm to the Financial Trust Company, and for tax advantages, based it on the island of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which I think they all had a thing for, the name of the islands, like people that were that, you know what I'm talking about. And then you got to remember the records with that name too, right? By relocating to the U.S. Virgin Islands, Little E was able to reduce federal income taxes by 90%. It's all about the taxes, ma'am. Just the tax, ma'am. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm lifting a line from Dragnet. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the tax, man. U.S. Virgin Islands acted as an offshore tax haven while at the same time offering the advantages of being part of the U.S. banking system. In 2003, New York Daily News publisher Mortimer Zuckerman partnered with Little E advertising executive Donnie Douche and investor Nelson Pelz in a bid to acquire the New York Magazine. The ultimate buyer was Bruce Wasserstein, a longtime Wall Street investment banker who paid $55 million, over $10 million above the offer from Zuckerman, Epstein, Douche, and Pelz. In 2004, Little E and Zuckerman committed up to $25 million to finance Radar, a celebrity and pop culture magazine founded by Mayer Roshan. Little E and Zuckerman were equal partners in the venture. Roshan, as its editor-in-chief, retained a small ownership stake. It folded after 3 issues as a print publication and became exclusively an online one. That's kind of early for exclusively online, but again, he surrounded himself with media moguls or not media moguls so much as IT moguls and scientists. He was obsessed with transhumanism, keeping yourself alive after you are no longer, so that you are forever, right? Anna B says, wow, I know. I can hardly keep up with this. Me brain. Let's see. Little E was the president of the company Liquid Funding Ltd. Between 2000 and 2007. Oh, interesting how that might correspond with the economic crisis of 2008. I don't know. The company was an early pioneer in expanding the kind of debt that could be accepted on repurchase or the repo market, which involves a lender giving money to a borrower in exchange for securities that the borrower then agrees to buy back at an agreed upon later time and price. So do you think Donnie was doing this? This is all during the time when they were best friends. OMG. They were best friends at least from the early 90s to the early 2000s, if not longer. That's just what they will admit to, what Dear Leader will admit to. So somewhere around 93, give or take a year, to 04. But he's pretty stiff with the 04, right? But then there's records that it wasn't such a hard line. And now there's records that say it wasn't he that gave little E the boot, but little E gave him the boot. Little E was like, take a hike, you lowlife. But that came back to bite him on the rear end or around the neck or something in 2019. Anyway, on with the show. Here we go. I need to hit my reset button. Do you ever find yourself like doing this to a piece of paper? I've never done that. I'm just wondering if you have. I've done it once or twice, and I'm just like, OMG. Again, I'm going to scratch my nose. It's so annoying because I have to have a fan on to have the circulating air, but then it just like messes with the little like tickles in the nose. It's so stupid. So dumb. What is up with that? Let me move the fan. That might help. I'm going to move that fan so it's only on my feet. I bet that'll help. Quit messing with my nose, stupid air. Air is my enemy. Where was I? Oh, I think I was... Sorry, lost my spot. Pretty stiff, LOL. Fred, thank you for catching that. Yeah, like a hard line. I know. Did you see, speaking of hard, did you see the freaking South Park? I highly recommend it. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. For anybody who doesn't like South Park, it took me a long time to understand the South Park humor. These guys are brilliant, and they are playing with fire, and it doesn't even matter whether they win or lose. They're winning by doing it. So they are daring Paramount. They're daring Donnie. They just hit it out of the ballpark. I won't say anything else, but watch it. Watch it and laugh your arse off. Okay, now where was I? I think right here. The repo market. Let's see. Okay, I think that's where I was. It was, because this is where I was like, oh, I wonder if Donnie Two Dolls got involved with that when he was just, how many times has he declared bankruptcy? I think 6 at least, if not more. Okay, I'm going to just reread a little bit. The company was an early pioneer in expanding the kind of debt that could be accepted on repurchase or the repo market, which involves a lender giving money to a borrower in exchange for securities that the borrower then agrees to buy back at an agreed upon later time and price. The innovation of liquid funding and other early companies was that instead of having stocks and bonds as the underlying securities, it had commercial mortgages and investment grade residential mortgages bundle into complex securities as the underlying security, which is crazy because real estate is one of the mainstays of laundering cash. Okay, liquid funding was initially 40% owned by Bear Stearns. Through the help of the credit rating agencies Standard & Poor's, Fitch Ratings, and Moody's Investor Services, The new bundled securities were able to be created for companies so that they got a gold-plated AAA rating. The implosion of such securities, and I am going to get to the survivors of these dirtbags because that's what is more important to focus on. But I wanted to lay this as the foundation for our jumping off point. I watched South Park this morning. Oh, good. How are the legs today, Fred? Sherry says, pretty stiff to listen to all the past. Yes. What did you think, Annabise? Sherry, bad arch and ankle pain after 4 hours on concrete at work, about 6 a.m., about 6 on a 10 scale. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, being on concrete's the worst. The worst. Hardwood is really bad too. Oh, no pun intended. None whatsoever. Okay, let's go. I read this part about new bundled securities were able to be created for companies so that they got gold-plated AAA rating. The implosion of such complex securities because of their inaccurate ratings led to the collapse of Bear Stearns in March 2008 and set in motion the 2008 financial crisis and the subsequent Great Recession. If liquid funding were left holding large amounts of such securities as collateral, it could have lost large amounts of money. Did you know that little e was at the heart of destroying our entire economy? And see, I think that that's what little t is doing right now on purpose for his friend Vladdy. I think he's out to gut the nation. Investments, hedge funds between 2002 and 2005, little e invested $80 million in the DB Schwern Special Opportunities Fund, a hedge fund that invested in illiquid debt securities. That's funny. I've never seen that word. In November 2006, little e attempted to redeem his investment after he was informed of accounting irregularities in the fund. By this time, his investment had grown to $140 million. So this is November 2006. This coincides with he's already been under investigation for a little bit. And then the deal making with Acosta started in 2007. But this is November of 2006. And all this financial stuff is going on. This is why they gave him, they handled him with kid gloves. They gave him a slap on the wrist for doing heinous destruction of humanity. By this time, his investment had grown to $140 million. The DB Schwern Fund refused to redeem this investment. Hedge funds that invest in illiquid securities typically have years-long lockups on their capital for all investors and require redemption requests to be made in writing 60 to 90 days in advance. The fund was closed in 2008, and its remaining assets of approximately $2 billion, including little e's investment, were transferred to Fortress Investment Group when that firm bought the assets in 2009. So they came out fine. They still had money in 2009 when everyone lost their shirt and their pants. No, I didn't know he was behind ruining our country. It's not surprising. I know. I didn't know either until this. This is just Wikipedia, you guys. This is just Wikipedia. And where was I? Little e later went to arbitration with Fortress over his redemption attempt. The outcome of that arbitration is not publicly known. Why not? Why not? In 2006, little e, a month after the federal investigations of him began, I didn't say August of 2006. So the investigations of him began July of 2006. Invested $57 million in the Bear Stearns high-grade structured credit strategies enhanced leverage hedge fund. This fund was highly leveraged in mortgage-backed collateralization debt obligations. And this is when they were allowing anybody who asked, basically, to purchase a home, right? Let's see, down to about a 3 after feet up for an hour. Oh, I'm so glad that you have your feet up for the last hour. Yeah, keep them up for the next 23 if you can, right? Sorry to hear, Fred. Have you tried arch supports? And Fred says, I have arch supports. Yeah, I don't know if those are helpful. Sometimes those things can hurt too, I would imagine. Oh, man. I think I was right about here. Yeah. I want to reread the last couple of sentences. This fund was highly leveraged in mortgage backed collateralization debt obligations, which are called CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. On April 18th, 07, an investor in the fund who had 57 million invested discussed redeeming his investment. At this time, the fund had a leverage ratio of 17-1, which meant for every dollar invested, there were $17 of borrowed funds. Therefore, the redemption of this investment would have been equivalent to removing $1 billion from the thinly traded CDO market. The selling of CDO assets to meet the redemptions that month began a repricing process and general freeze in the CDO market. The repricing of the CDO assets caused the collapse of the fund 3 months later in July and the eventual collapse of Bear Stearns in March 08. Wow. This one bastard that wanted their money. An investor. Oh, wait, was it him? Because it says right before that, what I read is that little E, a month after the federal investigation of him began, he invested 57 million into the Bear Stearns. And then less than a year later, April 07, an investor who had invested 57 million discussed, so it was probably him. He single-handedly caused the entire crisis, allegedly, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion. Your birthday, Fred. Oh, did you get 57 million on your birthday in 07? Was that you that did it? No. Were you friends with little E? Okay. Oh my goodness. I can't believe what I'm reading. I can't believe it. I can't believe that it's just right here on Wikipedia. But I wouldn't be reading all of this in such great detail if it wasn't for the fact that I'm reading it to you. Because like I read a bunch of it, but not all of it. This is just like the nitty gritty that's killing me. And at the same time, it's like so freaking vital. It's killing me with the minutia, and it's so freaking vital. At this time, the fund, okay, I read that about the leverage ratio. The selling of the CDO assets to meet the redemptions that month began a repricing process and general freeze in the CDO market. I read that. The repricing of the CDO assets caused the collapse of the fund 3 months later in July. And the eventual collapse of Bear Stearns in March of 08. So yeah, that's right where I left off. Holy crap. Now it says, it is likely little E lost most of this investment, but it is not known how much was his. It could have been all. Holy crap. By the time the Bear Stearns Fund began to fail in May 07, little E had begun to negotiate a plea deal with the U.S. Attorney's Office. You guys, it all goes back to Acosta. And this is why they had to have him in jail, because not just the people's lives that he destroyed and the statutory and the assaults, but this. They were protecting all of the people involved in this scam. Do you think Donnie Toodles was involved? Huh. Think. Impossible. Impossible. He barely knew him. He just had him come to his wedding. He just rode on his airplane with him all the time. They rode on each other's airplanes all the time. They wrote each other birthday cards. Barely knew him. Spoke to each other and about each other every day. Okay, where was I? Little E had begun